Good morning everyone, and a very warm welcome to you to the 5th Women in Mining and Resources Annual Seminar. In these difficult times, we are very pleased to have 500 people here today, and this certainly illustrates the value of this forum in both the good times and the not so good times. Today being Friday the 13th, it was easy to choose a theme for the day, which is also very relevant to the interesting times we find ourselves in. Making your own luck is something that many people live by, myself included. And today we will hear a variety of stories about how people made their luck, which is not so different to our theme from the year before last, making the most of opportunities. Because what we often call luck is opportunities that we can either work towards and realise or let slip by. A big focus today is about negotiation, and we're really excited about having a very special guest here from Stanford University in California, Professor Margaret Neal, who is going to share her wisdom with us in the second session. This is a first for us, having an international distinguished speaker at our seminar, and I think it's particularly worthwhile in these more complicated times with low commodity prices and the uncertainty associated with people losing their jobs and looking at new opportunities. Jane Caro will be speaking after lunch. Many of you will be familiar with Jane from TV and Twitter, and she's going to share some of her stories from her life and career, which, although she's not from the mining industry, there are lessons to be learnt from other male-dominated sectors such as advertising, where Jane hails from. Back to interesting times. There are people in this room that have lost their jobs this year, and others that may lose theirs soon. I think it's important that we as a community think about how we can help our fellow women in mining during these times. Last year, I talked about community and how important community is to me, and I think in tough times like this, it becomes even more important. So if you're talking to someone today that has lost their job, please consider how you and your network could help this person in the same way that someone may be able to help you at some time in the future or has helped you in the past. So what's all the fuss about women in mining anyway? Why do we need WIMWA? So last month I gave a brief address at a Women in Mining event at Diggers and Dealers in Kalgoorlie. We had a joint event with the School of Mines Graduates Association. I started off by talking about my background, and I pointed out that I was the first woman to work as an underground manager in WA, and that was in the mid-90s, less than 20 years ago. There had been one or two women that had run quarries and open pits in WA before this, but the point I'm trying to make is that women haven't been in this industry that long. At my first job at Jubilee Mine in Kalgoorlie in 1987, the first time they employed a female truck driver, a couple of blokes quit to prove some sort of point. Yesterday, someone who was talking for who worked for Robe River in the 80s told me that at that time there was a big push in that early iron ore boom to employ women as truck drivers and in other roles. But I think the recession of the early 90s put paid to that initiative. At Diggers and Dealers, there were 46 speakers over 3 days, and sadly, there was not a female amongst them. At the WIMWA event, I pointed this out to the audience and said that I didn't think anyone would disagree with me if I said that there wasn't any physical, mental or intellectual reason why women couldn't be in those roles. And everyone nodded. To tell the truth, I don't think some people had even noticed up until that point. So this highlights that we need to be talking about these things and raising these issues. The reality is there's something structural about our industry that means women aren't in those roles yet. And there's something wrong with the way we're running our businesses if we're excluding many high potential people with a lot of talent from these roles. Clearly, the fact women have only been in the industry more recently has had an impact, but this must be due to change as time goes on. The other important factor is that women often aren't as confident and certain in their abilities, and will frequently sell themselves short. I've seen this in CVs, where men will commonly overstate their capabilities and women will do the opposite. So have a think about what this means when a male employer, who knows he's overstated his own CV, assesses a CV. Say he mentally takes 10 to 20% off for exaggeration. If he then assesses a woman's CV who's undersold herself by 20%, he will mentally take another 10 to 20% off and throw her CV away straight away. I'm not suggesting for one moment that everyone should use too much imagination when writing their CVs, but you must claim what is rightfully yours and write it like a bloke would. So why is it important to have women leading mining companies? It's equally important to have women doing every job in mining. And they are, but there's not enough of them yet. Recent data shows there's more women in mining these days, but there are plenty more men too. So although the quantity has increased, the ratio hasn't increased very much. We need senior women in mining companies so that women can have role models for success and can see a career path and a future. We need senior women so that it becomes the new normal for women in mining at every level. But there is change on the horizon. When WIMWA started in 2003, 10 years ago this month, it was very grassroots and very softly. There was some resistance to the idea of it in some circles, but we just kept going, not making a song and dance about it, and individuals got up in their organisations and tapped someone sympathetic for sponsorship, and we would have another event. There wasn't really any coordinated high-level corporate support. After a few years, the skills shortage started to hit, and support started to come from higher up in the companies, and it was something that started to be talked about. So when we held the first seminar in 2009, the timing was right. And then in 2010, the Chamber started their Women in Resources Awards, which were modelled on the Queensland Resource Council Awards that have been going for a few years. So where are we in 2013? 10 years on. We now have 1,800 people on the WIMWA mailing list. We have regular networking events with up to 200 attendees. We have this annual seminar, which has got better and better every year. We have a very successful mentoring program, which has set the standard in Australia, and we'll hear more about this later. And recently, we have a new initiative, the Diverse Boardroom Series, which is a series of events where a mining company board hosts a networking event with the Women in Mining Mentor cohort. This series aims to introduce boards and executive management to talented and motivated women in the West Australian resources sector and gain an understanding of the amazing women we have in this industry today. Building networks and finding career sponsors are important strategies to encourage women to take on critical career-building roles and to stay engaged in the industry. WIMWA's Diverse Boardroom Series encourages women to increase their presence in the industry, provide a strong network for women, and for the industry to be proactive in attracting and retaining women in the sector. There have been 3 of these events so far, with Atlas Iron sponsoring the first last year, IMX Resources earlier this year, and last night the Chamber of Minerals and Energy sponsored the third. We think this is a really important initiative and are pleased that BHP are to sponsor the next event. The Minerals Council of Australia has also increased their activities in this area in recent years. In July, they released a white paper which summarises what has been happening in gender diversity in mining over the years. They have also described the business case for gender diversity, why we need it, and recommendations for companies on how to improve their situation. There are 4 main areas: image and perception, positive advertising campaigns, working with schools, celebrating success by awards, mentoring and networking, providing resources to support these activities and to provide role models, building a diverse culture, which includes getting buy-in from CEOs, workplace flexibility and training of managers, implementing measures. So coming up with ways to measure change, the use of benchmarking, scorecards, KPIs and targets. All of this is a great leap forward and consolidates earlier work, but there's still a long way to go. Companies are interested in changing, but we need to keep some pressure on them, especially in these interesting times. I was talking to Terry Burgess, the Managing Director and CEO of Oz Minerals, at Minerals Week in July. He said that they had successfully achieved a meaningful proportion of women in their organisation up until earlier this year, when they realised that after a round of retrenchments, all their good work had been undone. He said their focus now has to be on sustainable gender diversity so that this doesn't happen again. It's really important that MDs and CEOs talk about what they're doing in their organisations so that people really start to hear it and believe it. So that's what the industry is doing, and a bit about what WIMWA is doing. It's not just grassroots, there's a coordinated, solid, corporate top-down approach as well. What can you do? Get involved in all of these things and be knowledgeable about the issues. Then you can do something. People often ask us, when is WIMWA going to do this or that? And the reality is, we all have jobs, and so it's about someone putting up their hand to do something and making a difference in their part of the community and helping to make our community better for those inside and outside of it. This brings me to something that I've been looking forward to doing for some time. I would like to acknowledge someone who's done exactly this, got up and done something for women in mining. I'm very proud to announce the inaugural WIMWA 2013 award for Outstanding Initiative in Promoting and Supporting Women in Mining. This person is known to many of you in the Pilbara for her work in setting up the Pilbara Women in Mining group a few years ago. She then moved to South Australia, but continued to steer the Pilbara group. Since being in South Australia, she has become involved with the OzOMM's WIMNet group as the Deputy Chair and has worked hard to get a WIMNet group going there, with many events involving students. And having now moved to Roxby Downs, she has no doubt plenty planned for there. Jo Barron-Perry, can you please come up to the stage? I'd like to finish by thanking our sponsors who make this event possible. I'd particularly like to thank the wonderful company I work for, Momentum Partners, who are indeed our most significant sponsor. Please stop and talk to the people at our booth today about the work we do and maybe support our business. Or not maybe. I'd like to finish by saying that I hope you have a great day and make the most of the networking opportunities. And let's work together to make our community and this industry a better place for all of us. Thank you.